I don't even know what to say. I'm just happy to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We are live. We are back after a couple of weeks' absence doing the live shows here, and it is playoff time. We are back, and it is the postseason, the NFL postseason for 2024-2025. We are just a few short weeks away from crowning our next Super Bowl champion, which is exceptionally exciting. And hey, Andrew's got it right there in the chat. He says, definitely long overdue. We missed you. My boy, I missed you too. I missed all of you. I missed doing this show for a couple of weeks. You know, the holidays were wonderful. They were lovely, nice and quiet and relaxed for the most part. Had a great time. But, you know, it just wasn't conducive to being able to go live or record or anything like that. So I'm happy now that, you know, a couple of weeks has gone by and we can be right back here doing this thing and to do it for playoff football, no less, which is infinitely more exciting than the regular season. I'm wearing one of my Christmas presents, which was a nice black and gold Green Bay Packers hoodie that my mother got me for Christmas. And, logos on the arm there. It's nice and thin. I love this thing. So this is going to be great for recording. And I guess if I were to follow that trend of YouTubers, back in the long ago, when I first started doing this, back in those heady days of 2011, I think was my first season, there were a lot of like NFL related YouTubers who would do like hate weeks. I wonder if that's still a thing. So, like, let's say you were, you know, an Arizona Cardinals YouTuber, right? You love the Cardinals. You live and die with the Cardinals. You would see them every time they do a video. Let's say they were playing the Rams. It would be like Rams hate week. And they'd get on there and they'd be like, oh, I just hate the Rams so much. It was like the lamest thing. Like, right? Look, I was somebody that took a few years to figure myself out doing videos and I'm not doing live streams, but really like doing videos. It took me a while to figure myself out. But instantly, when I first started this, I was like, yo, that's lame. that's about the lamest thing that I feel like you could do in like if you're gonna make content, like I don't know, it just seemed like cheesy and lame and whatever. Maybe people still do it, I don't know, but it was big back in like 2011, 2012, 2013. Like hate weeks, they were huge, and it was just, I don't know, it was weird and bizarre. So we'll talk about the last couple of weeks of the regular season because obviously I was not here for a few weeks. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the pick and pool, and then we're going to get right into these 6 games that comprise Wildcard Weekend. They used to call it like Super Wildcard Weekend, but it looks like that's not part of the branding anymore. Anyway, in 5, 4, 3, what's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and we are back because it's the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. Wild Card Weekend is just a few short days away, kicking off on Saturday. Welcome to the show, my 2013, wow, just went in the Wayback Machine for, you know, more than a decade there. 2024-2025 NFL football pick show. We were talking before the podcast, before the episode, about some lame stuff that used to happen on YouTube like a decade ago, and I guess I was still in the decade ago headspace. That's really funny. Okay, so it has been a couple of weeks since I've been on here doing the show, and you know, over Christmas and, you know, just over the whole holiday season, just didn't exactly feel conducive to being able to sit down and record and just having the time in the schedule. But over the last couple of weeks, this is kind of how it's gone down for me. The picks, which I've put on Twitter over the last couple of weeks, have been, you know, kind of milquetoast. They haven't exactly been, I didn't exactly leave the regular season with a ton of momentum. We'll put it that way. Last week, I did go 10-6 straight up, so that's perfectly fine. Hit double digits. Week before that, I think I was only like 7-9 or 8-8 or something like that. I was really just basically right, even money, even straight up. And against the spread and on the totals weren't exactly great either. Although last week I did go 9-6-1 to the totals to finish the season relatively strong. Here's how it all pans out as the season has come to a close. Straight up, I finished 169-103, picking the league straight up over the whole season. And I did kind of have an informal goal in mind for the end of the year, which was to get to 170. So unfortunately, didn't quite get there. I missed by one game. And I made the joke in one of the league chats that if I had just had 1 week, I'm kind of the Cincinnati Bengals here. If I'd have had 1 week where I just said, you know what? Maybe the Panthers don't pull off the upset this week. If I had done that like one time this year, I'd have hit it. I'd have hit my 170. But that's clearly not who I am. So I didn't do that, and I finished just short at 169-103. Against the spread, I think was my real success of the season. I'm a full 31 games over 500 to end the regular season. 148, 117, and 7. What's really exciting about that is if you look at it from like a betting perspective, most good books will give you like minus 110 against the spread, either in either direction, whether you're taking a dog or a favorite. If I had bet every single line as I gave it to you on these shows for the exact same amount, like one unit, let's say our unit is $10, $100, it's whatever you do. If I had put one unit on every single game on the lines as I got them and gave them to you on this show and got them all at minus 110, this would be my first season ever. And I've been doing this for 13 years. My first season ever where against the spread, I would have been a winning bettor. Like I would have made, 17 or 18 units, something like that. And that's an accomplishment because in order to do that, because of the odds, you usually have to be around 52.5 to 53%. So this season, I think I'm 54.5 or something like that. It's definitely my best full length season, picking every single game against the spread. Because again, I don't cherry pick. I don't come on here and say like, oh, here's my 4 favorites or here's my 6 favorites or anything like that. No shade to anybody that does that. But I pick every game against the spread every week, every game on the total every week. So for the whole length of a season, over 272 games, to sit here and say I would have been a winning bettor if I would have bet every single one of my lines kind of feels cool. And it's, again, the first time I've accomplished that. On the totals, I did finish 6 games under 500, but man, I've had some cataclysmic seasons picking totals. Like I've had seasons where I just stop picking totals because I'm doing so terrible at them. So only to be like 6 games under 500, I'm actually kind of okay with that. Most people probably wouldn't be, and maybe I shouldn't be, but definitely am. All right. In the Bridgewater's finest pick'em pool for season 13 of this show, I still sit in 19th place out of 34, 1,570 out of 2,208 possible confidence points. That's a clip of 71.1%. So again, would have been a championship pace in any other season, but Tyler's picks has just been obliterating the whole field all season long. I did bring in 91 of 136 confidence points last week, which is a clip of just over 66 and just under 67%, actually, to get my math right. Shout out to our week 18 winner, and they are in the chat right now, my good friend Kat, the anti-rule of 4 gang, winning week 18, bringing in 103 of 136 possible confidence points for a clip of 75.7% last week, and it was good enough to win the closing week of the season. So shout out to Kat for accomplishing that. Our overall leader and our regular season champion is, of course, Tyler's picks, 1,712 of 2,208 possible confidence points, a clip of 77.5. Just a massive, massive season for Tyler's picks. Let's see if they can continue it through the postseason. And again, for anyone that's in this pool or who's in Steven Half Moon's picks against the spread pool, those pools continue through the playoffs. Consequently, since we both use confidence points, there are only 146 confidence points left to be won this season. 66 this week, 40 next week, 24 the week after, and 16 for the Super Bowl. So 146 points remain to be had. If you're still within 146 points, you still got a shot at winning these things. So it when I say it's almost never too late, I mean it's almost never too late. And I'll take this opportunity to remind you, of course, that if you go to the description of this live stream, the VOD, the podcast, wherever you interact with this show, you're going to find all of my results from last week, all my straight up against the spread and over under plays for Super Wildcard Weekend or whatever you want to call it in the NFL. You're going to find information on joining the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em Pool for season 13 of this show. Once again, you win a week, you get shouted out on the show. So it's never too late to join up if you want to. You can also find information on joining the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page, where you're going to find progs like me, progs like Kat, progs like Half Moon, and again, a bunch of great folks who are doing things, similar to what I do, making these picks out here every single week, making content for you. The NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page is where you want to go to find that. All right, let's get caught up here in the chat. AR, 12 steps. Let's go, Justin. Give it to us straight. No problem. Will do. Andrew saying, again, definitely long overdue. We missed you. Broken Ankle is in the chat. Nice to have you back. Twitter pics are nice, but the detail you give us on the show goes above and beyond. Love that, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Andrew, I got a Gary Cheevers cap from Boston Scully that my mom gave me for Christmas. Nice Green Bay gear you got. Thank you so much. That's very cool. A nice Cheevers hat. Don't mind me. I'm recovering from a head cold over the weekend. That sucks. Hope you feel better. Kat, thank God I checked YouTube. There you go. Hey, I put it on Twitter. I did my due diligence. Andrew, we need football playoffs picks with Justin and Kat. Kat, you always like to do something around the Super Bowl, don't you? Hit me up about that. Let's get that figured out. Too pumped to be a podcast. Just popping in to say hi. I listen to the audio all the time. Been listening for a couple years. Oh, thank you so much. That's awesome. Like, do you get this like on the podcast feed? Because that's awesome. I always love to hear from the podcast listeners. I know there's like a dozen really dedicated podcast listeners. So I'm just like, yes, the podcast is worth it. And go Commanders. There you go. Go Commanders. Jaden Daniels. What a season for that guy. Kat, we'd have some fun. Believe me, Justin, the very analytical, me, the vibes guy. We could have actual conversations on things. Yeah, absolutely. I honestly, I think you and I making content together would actually work really well. You love your upsets. I do. I got my soft spot for my upsets. There might be some this week too. I go up what I feel, never mind what anyone says, even Vegas. I mean, honestly, I think that's the way to go, Andrew. And Kat kind of chimes in. I think for the sake of making predictions, it's just more fun. Good to see how you do across the boards. I just like knowing the records of how I did when all's said and done. Yeah, nice. Kat, Tyler with over 200 correct picks. I know, it's crazy. Like, he has been wild all season long. It's been absolutely insane. I listen on Podcast Addict. So cool. That is awesome. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. That's really like, I mean, YouTube is kind of like, YouTube's obviously where I started with this show and where this show will always be. But I have really enjoyed doing the podcast version as well. So that's super cool. I love hearing that. All right. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Wildcard Weekend. Let's take a look at the 6 football games that we have got on deck this weekend. So we got 2 games coming up on Saturday. We got 3 games coming up on Sunday, and we close out on Monday. We assume in Los Angeles, but of course, anyone who's been following the news knows that there's a wildfire situation that's going on in and around the Los Angeles area. And obviously my heart goes out to anybody that is impacted over that, and the insane amount of first responders that would be involved in a situation like that. I like, it's it's horrifying. Like, I remember the few times that it's happened up here in Canada, Fort McMurray, wildfires out in BC. Like, I mean, we had a wildfire here. I mean, just basically an hour away from me, not that long ago. So it's a terrifying situation. So my heart goes out to everybody that's impacted by that, and I hope that it gets rectified very soon. I know they canceled today's hockey game in Los Angeles. It was the Kings and I want to say Calgary. I think it's the Kings and Flames. Anyway, they canceled that game in light of that. And I know the Rams game is on Monday, but that's not saying that, like, I mean, Monday is not a big turnaround time to get something that size under control. So, I mean, something like that could very easily impact the game on Monday. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully everything gets under control and rectified and finished long before then. But I mean, it's something that certainly the NFL is keeping an eye on and could be something that winds up coming into play. The obvious solution for me, I would think, would be to probably go up and play in Santa Clara, go play at Levi's Stadium in San Francisco. I mean, this is going to sound like I'm railing on the Niners. It's not, but they're not using their stadium. So you could go up conceivably and play that football game there, still in California, still with, home field advantage, quote unquote, for the Rams. And that seems like a solution that might work. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but if it does, there are options for sure. Okay. Let's get started with these two games that take place on Saturday. These games are the Los Angeles Chargers on the road in Houston, taking on the Texans. That's the 5v4 matchup in the AFC. And we've also got the 6v3 matchup in the AFC, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road in Baltimore, taking on the Ravens. So let's start with that Houston and Chargers game. Chargers come into this game winners of 3 straight. They are on back-to-back road games. So again, multiple games on the road in a row. Houston coming in off of a win last week. Houston kind of milquetoast at home this year, only 5-3. Not a super impressive home record when you look at the home records of the 4 of the 5 other home teams this week. I mean, Baltimore 6-2, Buffalo was unbeaten, they were 8-0, Philly 7-1. Like you expect that, you kind of get the job. It's the old Baltimore Ravens formula, right? Get the job done at home, go 50-50 on the road, and all of a sudden you're 12-4 and in a playoff spot. You know what I mean? So Houston was okay, but 5-3 is not a remarkable home record. Plus, against the spread, Houston was under 500 at home this season at 3-4-1. Chargers were 6-3 on the road this year. So the back-to-back road games, how much do you really worry about it? They were also 7-2 against the spread away from home this season. So they're hitting a couple times as dogs, maybe again, winning a couple of those underdog games outright. So the Chargers did have a very successful season away from home this year. Couple of the matchups that I'm really paying attention to in this game. Obviously, Justin Herbert was a top 10 passer this year in terms of pass yards. Houston did have a pretty darn strong secondary this year. It was probably the highlight of their defense all season long, was their ability to stop the pass. They were a number 6 rated pass defense in the NFL in terms of total yardage anyway, and they allowed the 4th smallest QBR against this season. So the secondary did definitely get the job done. The run defense, I think, was a problem for a lot of the season, but the secondary definitely did some good things for the Texans. The Texans were also the number 4 pass rush in the NFL this past season. So getting to the quarterback, Houston found a lot of success, the 4th most sacks, and they're going up against a team that was kind of average in terms of protecting their star quarterback. The Chargers gave up only I think it was like they were number 19 or something in the NFL in terms of fewest quarterback sacks allowed. So, the number 4 pass rush against the number 19, you can say, pass blocking unit. There's the opportunity there for sure for Houston to be able to find some daylight in the pass rush game. But I think if you look at the other side of that coin, you look at the Chargers pass rushing against Houston, the 3rd worst pass line, protecting their quarterback this season. They allowed the third most sacks in the NFL, and the Chargers were a top 10 pass rush this past season. I think the Chargers are going to be able to find a lot of opportunities to get to CJ Stroud. We're talking getting into that area of that fourth sack, that fifth sack, that sixth sack, even with a young quarterback on the other side, can be very, very demoralizing. It doesn't give him time to be able to make the right reads, make the right plays. It really puts Houston behind the eight ball in terms of trying to win this game. Add on top of that the Chargers, as favorites on the road, which they are this week, Houston is taking +3. The Chargers as favorites on the road, 5-1 against the spread this season. So not only were they favorites on the road, a decent amount of times, they were covering those numbers. So I really like the Chargers in this spot. I think they're objectively the better football team between the two, at the very least, the way they've played out this season. So give me the Chargers on the road here to go into Houston, get what should be an upset win, but based on Vegas, it's not, to go into Houston and get the win over the Texans. Give me the Chargers. So on the line, like I say, the Chargers are laying -3 here on the road, 5-1 against the spread as road favorites. Where the Chargers this year, I like them to win. It's a relatively small price to pay. So let's go ahead and lay the -3 there on Los Angeles. Total in the game set at 42.5 points. These two teams only combined to hit 14 overs all season long. The Chargers only hitting 3 of 9 overs on the road this year. And Houston, 6 overs all season long, only 1 of them coming at home. The Texans were 1-7 to the over this season. Heavy on the under in this game as far as I'm concerned. Under 42.5 points in Los Angeles and Houston. Let's make it close. Let's make it fun, competitive. Let's go like 23-17, something like that. Chargers win. Chargers cover the -3 and give me the under on the 42.5 point total. Let's see. Hakuna Matata time for Andrew. It'd be great if they play it on a CFL field. I don't think that's going to happen. Be interesting, but I don't think it's going to happen. Houston could use a great O-line like by Patriots. Well, this feels like an under. Both these defenses are good. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. All right. Pittsburgh in Baltimore. Steelers taking on the Ravens, obviously division matchup of the AFC North. And these two teams played each other relatively recently. The Steelers on a 4-game losing streak, limping into the postseason. The Ravens on a 4-game win streak. So these two teams going in exact opposite directions. Baltimore 6-2 at home this season, and a little bit over 500 against the spread at 4-3-1. The Steelers were 5-4 away from home this year, so they essentially, did their job. They're also 5-4 against the spread away from home. Obviously, we're watching Lamar Jackson in this game. He's the single biggest X factor, I think, in this game for either team. Lamar, the number 6 passer this season in terms of pass yards, going up against a Steelers defense that how do you describe the Steelers secondary? Two things can be true. They are a bottom 10 secondary in terms of average yards per game allowed. But the reason that that's the case is because teams threw on them a lot. It wasn't super hard, I guess, to put yards up. It was a lot easier to put yards up through the air than it was on the ground. The Steelers had a very good run defense this year. So they were bottom 10 in terms of, total pass yards allowed as a secondary, but they allowed the 8th lowest QBR. So it's not like the quarterbacks that they were facing were absolutely dissecting them. It was a volume thing, right? Like it was just teams threw on Pittsburgh a lot. So yeah, of course, they allowed, they were bottom 10 in terms of yards allowed, but volume plays a big role in that. Derrick Henry, obviously another huge X factor on Baltimore's side, the number 2 rusher in the entire NFL this past season. But like I say, Pittsburgh's run defense, nothing to shake a stick at. They were just outside the top 5. And I think the reason that they finished outside the top 5 is because of Derrick Henry a few weeks ago. Derrick Henry put up a big number against Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. The Steelers still number 6 run defense in the NFL this year. Team in terms of number of sacks allowed. So look, this is a team that struggled to protect the quarterback this year, going up against an elite pass rush. So this is one of those things where if Pittsburgh and whoever their quarterback happens to be for this game, if they don't have time to make plays, if Baltimore's pass rush is getting home, it's going to be a long night for the Steelers. Baltimore comes into this game as a massive home favorite of -10. I think the score in that game like a month ago was, I think, 34-17, wasn't it? So, they get to 50 points, they double them up, would have covered this number. Neither one of these teams are super impressive against the spread in this situation. Like, okay, Baltimore as a home favorite, 4-3-1. So every one of their home games, they were a home favorite. Totally get it. Pittsburgh as a road dog, 3-2 against the spread. So a little better than 500 in both cases. 10 points still just seems like a lot for a division game, especially one where the Steelers have been dominating the against the spread results for the past couple of years in the head-to-head matchup. I think there's something like 7-3 or 8-2 or something like that against the spread against Baltimore in the last 3, 4, 5 years. So 10 points just seems like an awful lot to me. I do think the Ravens are the better team. I'm taking the Ravens to win, but I don't think I can take them to lay -10. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I think this is going to be a hotly contested AFC North game. I really just don't see them blowing them out. So I like the Ravens to win. Give me the +10 on Pittsburgh, although I'm kind of doing that while I say that. Total in the game set at 43.5 points. So Baltimore had the most overs in the league this year at 13. Pittsburgh only had 8. However, 6 of those 8 overs came on the road. There were not a lot of points to be scored in Pittsburgh this year, but on the road, again, they went 6-3 to the over. So I think I got to take an over here on a pretty darn beatable number at 43.5. Give me the over. We're going to go over 43.5 points in Baltimore, Pittsburgh. Let's go like a 27-20. It's a one possession game. It's pretty close, pretty competitive, hits the over, doesn't quite get to 50 like it did last time, but I like 27-20. So Ravens win, Steelers cover the +10. Give me the over on the points. Okay, let's get caught up here in the chat. AR says, I like Chargers, Broncos, Ravens, Commanders. Andrew, Pittsburgh better not trade Mike Tomlin. That'll bite them in the ass if it's been talked about on Get Up on ESPN this morning. Interesting. Yeah, I can't see Tomlin. It's tough for me to see Tomlin coaching anywhere else. I mean, it'll happen, but it's just tough to see it. Henry, the first running back to rush for 1,900 yards and not win the rushing title, shows you how crazy he and Saquon went off this year. Absolutely. Ravens, no Zay Flowers, huge likely game coming. Oh yeah, okay, fair enough. That's a big weapon for them to not have. Pittsburgh 3-1 against the Ravens in the playoffs. Last time they met, Ravens won in 2015. Kat, there's definitely a stigma with the postseason Ravens that makes me not want to lay these points. I just don't feel confident. They should win by that much, but I don't want to lay that. Totally fair. Corey's in the chat. Corey J. Block, how you doing, my friend? I see a 24-16 or 27-20 for Baltimore. That 10 points sounds like a little too much. Yeah, there you go. Might be the first playoff matchup where the Ravens have the objectively better quarterback, though, if we're being honest, in the history of Ravens versus Steelers. That's good insight. I would tend to agree. All right, Sunday games. Here we go. The Denver Broncos on the road in Buffalo, taking on the Bills. Corey, how many games have you covered? Just the Saturday games so far. I had the Chargers beating Houston 23-17, and I've got Baltimore beating Pittsburgh 27-20. I'll go over the full battery of picks at the end of the show, too. All right, Denver at Buffalo. Bills, as I mentioned, unbeaten in Buffalo this season at 8-0. They also covered the spread 5 of those 8 games. Denver under 500 on the road this year, only 4-5. They certainly had struggles, especially earlier in the season. However, they did cover 6 of 9 spreads away from Denver this year. So against the spread, they found quite a bit of success. And that should be something that comes into play here too, because Buffalo is laying a big number here at -9. Are the Broncos the number 1 pass rush in the NFL this season, generating the most sacks in the entirety of the league? But they are also going up against the offensive line that allowed the fewest sacks. The classic matchup of elite pass rush team versus elite pass blocking team. So whoever wins that battle when Buffalo's got the ball and Denver's pinning their ears back trying to get to Josh Allen, when Buffalo's got the ball, whoever wins that matchup, whoever's winning at the line of scrimmage when Buffalo has the ball, could go such a long way to dictating who ultimately winds up winning this game. Obviously, Buffalo is a heavy favorite here. Buffalo did not generate nearly as much on the pass rush as Denver did this year. The number 18 team in terms of quarterback sacks generated, so in that meaty part of the curve in the entirety of the league, but they're up against a Denver team that ranked in the top 3 in terms of fewest numbers of sacks allowed. So Denver did a great job keeping their quarterback protected. Bo Nix did not hit the ground very much this season. The Broncos also the number 6 QBR against, the 6th lowest QBR allowed this season. So their secondary did an excellent job against opposing quarterbacks. Buffalo, for their side, again, number 18. So kind of similar to what we looked at with the pass rush, kind of elite on one side, kind of middle of the pack on the other. So you're looking at this and you're going like, this matchup seems a lot closer than this. Why is Buffalo favored by 9 whole points? Josh Allen generated 40 touchdowns this year, 28 through the air, 12 rushing touchdowns for Josh Allen this season. Unbelievable numbers. It's no wonder why he is one of the 2 MVP frontrunners, because 12 rushing touchdowns and 40 total touchdowns on the season, like he is one of the nuclear bombs in the entirety of the league. So it makes sense to me why Buffalo is a favorite at home, obviously. Should they be favored by -9? Probably not. I don't necessarily think that the results, like, yes, they were unbeaten at home, but I mean, 9 points is a lot, especially in a playoff game where there are no bad teams. It just seems like a lot of points. Buffalo 5-3 against the spread as home favorites this year. Denver as road dogs were 4-3. So what that means actually, so Denver was a road dog 7 times. All 3 of their road spread losses did come as underdogs, not necessarily this heavy of an underdog, but as underdogs. Total in the game is also set at 46.5 points, which does feel like a pretty beatable number. So before I do that spread, I'm going to look at that score. So I am going to take Buffalo to win this game because, again, they were unbeaten at home this year. Very solid in Buffalo. Yes, they're coming off of a loss last week. Denver's coming off of a win, but I really like the Bills in this spot to get the win. So let's take Buffalo to win the game. And on the total, I feel pretty comfortable going over on this one. 46.5 points. It's a little higher than a mid 40, but again, Buffalo had 11 overs this season. They were 6-2 at home to the over. Denver 6-3 to the over on the road. So I feel like there's a lot that's going in favor of the over. And I just don't see this game with these 2 quarterbacks necessarily staying under 50 points. So let's go ahead and go over the 46.5 point total in a game that probably gets into the 50s. Now, does Buffalo cover the spread? I think in order to answer that question, you probably have to answer another question. And that question is the moment too big for Bo Nix? I feel like as the season has wore on, Bo Nix has gotten better. And it's very obvious to me that Bo Nix is the guy. Like, he's the guy that Sean Payton thought he was going to be. There are a lot of teams that would kill to have Bo Nix a quarterback. A lot of teams. Boy. I don't think laying these points is the smart bet. But the score that's in my head is 31-20. So, that being the case, it's 11 points. It's bigger than 9. I'm going to hold my nose metaphorically this time. I'm not going to do it physically. Metaphorically. Bills win and Bills cover the -9. If I'm wrong, I'm not going to be shocked. But that's the score that I've got in my head, is 31-20. So Bills win, Bills cover -9, over the 46.5 point total, 31-20 final. I don't even feel comfortable having said that. Jeez. All right, let's rip the Band-Aid off, ladies and gentlemen. The Green Bay Packers, losers of 2 straight, on the road in Philadelphia, taking on the Eagles. Eagles have won 2 straight to end the season. 7-1 at the link this season were the Philadelphia Eagles. Only 4-4 against the spread, but 7-1 straight up. Really, ultimately, what matters is, did you win the game or did you not win the game? And 7 out of 8 times, the Eagles won the game. Packers, to their credit, 5-2 on the road this year, and a little over 500 against the spread at 4-3. Jalen Hurts earlier today was returned to Eagles practice, so clearly has cleared concussion protocol. I think he was still in the red no contact jersey. I think that's still a thing. But returning to practice obviously is a great sign for his availability this week. Saquon Barkley, the number 1 rusher in the NFL this season, going up against a Packers run defense that has been maligned in the past, but statistically speaking, top 10 in the NFL this year at number 7. So they were not the kind of Swiss cheese run defense necessarily that they've been characterized as in the past. Josh Jacobs, on the other side, the number 6 rusher in the NFL this season, against a Philadelphia Eagles run defense that sits just inside the top 10 at number 10 overall. And to their credit, the Green Bay Packers found quite a bit of success this year rushing the quarterback. The number 8 pass rush in the NFL in terms of quarterback sacks generated, going up against an Eagles offensive line that gets a lot of credit, obviously, for the run game, and they should, but they were number 20 in the NFL this year in terms of quarterback sacks allowed. So they gave up a lot. And the Packers were a pretty good pass rush this year. So the avenue is there if Green Bay gets into that 4-sack, 5-sack territory. I'm not saying that like it's an easy thing to do, because it's certainly not. But if you start getting into that 4 and 5 sack territory, you're putting yourself in position to be there at the end of the game. Kat kind of hit something on the head. How rusty Jalen Hurts may be could wind up being one of the bigger questions in this game, because he hasn't played in multiple weeks. When was the last time he played? Week 15? 16? 15, I think it was. So, that multiple weeks ago, it's entirely possible he comes out slow. If Green Bay doesn't come out slow, I think I heard that there was Philly got a bunch of snow, I thought, or either yesterday, was it yesterday maybe? Got a bunch of snow. It's nice of them to make Green Bay feel at home. City of brotherly love indeed. Pardon me a moment. You had to know I was going to do it. You had to know. My boy's right here. He's right behind me, over my shoulder. You didn't think I was going to actually take the time to take him down off his perch, shine him up real nice, hit that button under there to make him light up. You didn't think I was going to do all that and not take my boys? Are you kidding me? Who do you think I am? Nah, my boys. I'm doing it. Why not? What better time of year to be unrealistically, completely, because I think it's unrealistic to think that the Packers actually do win this game. But that doesn't matter right now. Who wants to live in the real world? We live in the fan world, ladies and gentlemen. It's the world we all live in. It's certainly the world I'm living in right now. The Green Bay Packers go into the link where only one team, not named Philadelphia, has left with a win and become number 2. Green Bay wins this game outright. I got a stat for you that is going to absolutely blow your mind. And I love this stat. Under Matt LaFleur, you may have heard this. Under Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay Packers, as dogs of 3 points or more, 15-2 against the spread. 15-2 as dogs of +3 or more. They are currently +4.5. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is delicious. That's just plain delicious. Green Bay wins. Green Bay covers the +4.5. Worth mentioning, as road dogs this year, Packers 2-0. It's only 2, but they got them both. Total in the game set at 45.5. I really like the under here. Philly only hit 7 overs all year long. Green Bay got 8. But at home, Philly was only 2-6 to the over. I'm smelling an under here. And I said it a little bit earlier. What you want is to be there at the end. By a final score of 23-20, Brandon McManus becomes a Green Bay legend and sends the heroes home happy. Green Bay beats the Philadelphia Eagles 23-20. They win, they cover, under on the points. Damn, that felt good. I got into character there. I love that. Doesn't happen very often anymore, but when it does, oh boy. All right. For the viewers who are still left, the Washington Commanders on the road in Tampa Bay taking on the Bucks. So the Bucks only 5-4 at home this year. They struggled just actually a little bit worse than I talked about a little earlier with Houston. Only 5-4 at home, 5-4 against the spread as well. Commanders 5-3 on the road this year, but only 3-4-1 against the spread. So I think they did have some decent sized home favorite numbers that they just didn't cover, which I think is the explanation for that. But they're coming into this game, our Washington, one of the hottest teams, actually the hottest team that's playing this week, winners of 5 straight games. Washington really turned it on at the end of the season. Now, this is back-to-back road games for the Commanders. They did play on the road last week. Bucks are coming into this one winners of 2 straight as well. Obviously, still kind of riding the high of Mike Evans, hitting 1,000 yards again, which is awesome. Mike Evans is one of my favorite football players, so it was incredible to see him actually get that. Matchups I'm going to be paying attention to. Baker Mayfield, the number 3 passing quarterback in the NFL this season, up against the Washington Commanders, who had a total pass defense that also ranked number 3 in the entirety of the league. But we got to talk about that. You know how we talked about with Pittsburgh? They were a bottom 10 pass defense, but the QBR was like the 8th lowest allowed in the league. Washington is the reverse of that. The number 3 total pass defense in the NFL, but allowed only the 19th lowest QBR. So they allowed an above average QBR against, which would tend to tell you teams didn't throw on them as much. You might think, why weren't teams throwing on them as much? The answer probably comes in the next matchup that I'm going to look at, which is Bucky Irving, paying close attention to him this week as the number 10 rusher in the NFL this year, up against a Commanders bottom 5 run defense. It's because teams ran on them consistently and thoroughly all season long. I believe they were the 3rd worst total run defense in the NFL this season. High volume, high success running the football against the Washington Commanders. So that's how you get a team that's got the, number 3 total pass defense, but allow a below average QBR against. It's because teams weren't throwing on them as much because they were finding so much success running the football. The Bucks, also the number 6 pass rush in the NFL this season, just missing out on the top 5 in terms of quarterback sacks generated, and they're going up against the number 25 O-line unit in terms of, most sacks allowed. They allowed, what was that? That's the 7th most sacks, or tied for the 6th most sacks in the NFL this year. They did not do a great job of keeping their quarterback protected. And look, you got a high mobile quarterback back there, so I kind of get it. He's going to play himself into some sacks. It totally makes sense. But that Bucks pass rush found success all season long, and there's a great chance that they find success again this week. And if they find success at that kind of rate, I think this is the Bucks game to lose. So give me Tampa Bay. I actually really like Tampa Bay in this matchup. They're only favored at home by -3. I like them to win. It's a relatively small price to pay. I'm going to go ahead and lay that -3 on Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield has had an incredible season. This is the quarterback matchup this week that I really, really am looking forward. Like, low key, I'm really looking forward to Jaden Daniels versus Baker Mayfield. That just seems like a super fun quarterback matchup. And I think this game probably sees the most points of the weekend. So we'll go with Tampa to win. We'll go with Tampa to lay the -3. Total in the game set at 50 points. Tampa had 12 overs this year. Washington had 11 overs this year. Tampa was 6-3 to the over at home. Let's take the over on the points. Let's go with like a 30-24 final, something like that. Maybe 31-24. Get into a low to mid 50. Bucks win. Bucks cover -3. Give me the over on the 50-point total. And the last game we're going to look at, a game that hopefully does get played on schedule and on time, the Minnesota Vikings on the road in Los Angeles, taking on the Rams. Rams were only 5-4 at SoFi Stadium this season, which, again, one of the lower home marks among playoff teams, and only 4-5 against the spread, so under 500 against the spread at home. The Vikings, 6-2 on the road this year, found a lot of success. However, they too faced some big road spreads that they didn't always cover, because they were only 4-3-1 against the spread on the road. So neither one of these teams instilling a ton of confidence in terms of the spread at the very least. Now, that'll be okay because the spread's literally 1 point. So it's just whoever you think is going to win. So one of the primary matchups I'm taking a close eye on and watching this game, Kyren Williams, the number 7 rusher in the NFL this season. Very successful year for Kyren, up against the Vikings' number 2 run defense in the entire NFL this season. So whether Kyren can find room in the run game, I think really dictates a lot of the Rams' fortunes coming into this one. On the other side of that, you got Aaron Jones, who, despite the fact that he was injured for a little bit of this year, still a top 10 rusher this year at number 9 this season, up against the Rams just outside the bottom 10 in terms of their run defense. So the Rams did struggle this year stopping the run, statistically at the very least. And Aaron Jones, I think, is a running back who is more than capable of taking advantage of that and having himself a pretty big game. I'd like to see him touch the ball 15 to 20 times, as long, assuming he's healthy and assuming he's ready to go. That's really what I'd like to see. And again, another huge matchup here. When the Rams have the football, you're talking about the Vikings pass rush, which was top 5 in the NFL this year at generating quarterback sacks, up against the Rams O-line, which allowed the 6th fewest sacks against. I think it was either 5th fewest or 6th fewest, one of those. So very, very high level O-line play for the Rams for the majority of the season and keeping Matthew Stafford upright. So when they've got the ball, whether or not that Vikings pass rush led by a guy like Danielle Hunter, but just across the board, if their pass rush can start getting home, again, going to be a long day for the Rams. I don't love the Rams coming into these playoffs. My feelings on them are more lukewarm. Like they feel like the most gettable team on the NFC side. And that's not to, I don't have anything against them. But as I'm sitting here looking at the 7 playoff teams, I feel like the Rams are the most gettable of those 7 teams. So I think this is a great revenge spot for Minnesota. As Kat put in the chat, the Rams did beat the Vikings earlier this year. Granted, it was a Thursday game. I like it as a revenge spot here for Minnesota. I think the Vikings are ready to make a run here. I think they're built for this. Give me Minnesota on the road in Los Angeles to get the win over the Rams. So as I mentioned, the spread is only a single point. The Rams are +1, so they're actually a home dog. They were 4-2 against the spread as home dogs this year, but I like Minnesota to win. You can't hedge on a single point, so give me Minnesota minus the 1 point. Total in the game set at 48 points, and I like the under here. The Rams only hit 8 overs all season. Minnesota only hit 7, so it feels like an under, especially on a number that's almost in the 50s. So give me under 48 points in Minnesota, Los Angeles. Let's go like a 26-17, something along those lines. 26-17, Vikings win, Vikings cover, under on the 48-point total. That was iced tea, by the way. The question is, do you believe me? There you go, folks. Those are your games for the wild card round, 2024 NFL season, 2025 playoffs. Let's go over the picks here with you one more time where it's only 6 games. I got the Los Angeles Chargers in Houston beating the Texans 23-17. Chargers win. Chargers cover -3, under on the 42.5-point total. I got the Baltimore Ravens beating the Pittsburgh Steelers in Baltimore 27-20, taking the Steelers plus the 10 points there on the big spread over 43.5 points. I got the Buffalo Bills remaining unbeaten at home by beating the Denver Broncos 31-20. So I got Buffalo winning. I'm taking Buffalo to cover the -9 to, the chagrin of some folks, maybe even myself. and over on the 46.5 point total. I've got the Green Bay Packers upsetting the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia 23-20, taking the Packers plus the 4.5 points in a game that stays under the 45.5 point total. I've got the Tampa Bay Bucks beating the Washington Commanders 30-24, taking the Bucks to cover -3 in a game that goes over the 50 point total. And I've got the Minnesota Vikings on the road in Los Angeles, beating the Rams 26-17. Vikings win. Vikings cover the -1 against the spread in a game that stays under the 48 point total. I got my boy Tyler in the chat saying nothing football to say. Just want to tell you, keep up the good work, brother. I appreciate that so much. Andrew Warren is also going to appreciate this. Hey, Andrew, guess what Friday is? I'm only going to give you one guess. Guess what Friday is, my boy? You know what it is. You know it. You love it. Ladies and gentlemen, the movie awards film this weekend. Friday and Saturday are our recording days for the 11th Justin and Tyler Movie Awards. 11th or 12th? 11th. 11th? 12th? We've been doing it a long time. We've been doing it a long time. Let's just say that. The movie awards film this weekend, and I am super 11. Okay, it is the 11th. I'm super, super excited about it. We get excited about it every single year. The folks who live with me might not be excited about basically losing access to their basement for 2 days while you boys talk about the year that was in film. But we love it, and they ain't no stopping us now. So, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the show all season long, but especially this week. Playoff football, there's nothing quite like it. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Thank you again, and we will see you next week for the divisional round. There we go, folks. The podcast is done. The show is done. Super excited. Can't wait. Can't wait for the football games. Can't wait to talk about them movies. Again, a little more difficult this year where we lost our theater, but we found a way to make it work. So we're going to be done. I'm actually going to get this show in under an hour, which I think is incredible. Thank you so much, folks, for watching. Thank you for enjoying the show. I hope you really enjoy the football games this weekend. I hope you really enjoy the movie awards that are coming up. We will see you again next week. However you interact with this show, whether it's here, whether it's the podcast, if you've ever hit me up on Twitter, anything like that, I see you and I appreciate you. We will see you again next week.